Hello everyone, my name is Lowko, and today it is time for a professional match of Zerg versus Zerg. Spawning here in the southeast corner of King's Cove LE and playing with the blue drones. We are looking inside of the main base of Dark. And his opponent, also from South Korea, playing with the red drones, we have none other than Solar. Alrighty, so it's a Zerg versus Zerg. This is another match from IEM Katowice that was much recommended to me. I am really excited to figure out what it's all about, because obviously I haven't yet seen it myself either. But there's no denying that lately some of the most epic games have been Zerg versus Zergs, which is kind of curious because for the longest time, and I know there's some of you watching as well, for the longest time, Zerg versus Zerg was considered to be this matchup that was just very hit or miss, right? Generally speaking, the games ended within like 5 minutes at best. Zerglings and Banelings are pretty explosive, literally, and they can oftentimes close out the game really quickly. However, with skill level obviously going up in StarCraft and maps being standardized, for example, you can create a pretty easy wall right over here on King's Cove, and this is actually the difficult map to currently wall off in the current map pool. Generally speaking, the games have gotten much better, and I'm excited to see where this game is going to take us. Now, judging by the fact that both players are going for 2 hatcheries before making an expansion, I think that both of them are indeed looking to play that much longer, drawn-out macro game. This is one of those builds, okay, that if you're watching this, I don't think you want to play this on the ladder. I mean, going hatch, gas, pool. We see the same thing happening, I think, on the other side as well. Yeah, this is an extremely greedy opener for Zerg versus Zerg, because obviously it's one of the matchups that still is extremely aggressive as well. I mean, I personally see cheese on the ladder maybe, I would say like 1 in 3 games or so whenever I play ZVZ. There's a lot of 13-12s, so that means 13 gas, 12 spawning pool, or just a lot of very aggressive builds in general. Usually these kind of builds don't work very well on the ladder, but obviously if you know your opponent very well and you know the map, usually you can get away with it in best of 5s and best of 3 series. So we find ourselves on King's Cove. Now this map is humongous, okay? Obviously Zerglings are fast and they can cross the distance pretty quickly, but it's still gonna be a longer rush distance than we see on most other maps. So you have these 2 ramps that you can use to defend right here in the early game. This one is a little bit wider, but usually this one is also relatively easy to defend in Zerg versus Zerg, as long as you get your defensive Banelings and whatnot out as well. After that though, after these 3 bases, the 4th is pretty easy to take, the 5th is pretty easy to take, and from there on out, the map is wide open. But this is a map, just like for example Year Zero, the one with like Amon in the top center of the map. These are the 2 maps I feel like in the current map pool that really allow for some sick, solid macro games, and I think they're actually my personal favorites. I mean, I like my Cyber Forest, okay? I like the smaller maps as well, but usually the more macro-focused games, those are the ones that I personally enjoy watching quite a bit. So let's see. Both players now going for that metabolic boost upgrade, so they are going for that Zergling speed. Obviously, while they do open up with 3 hatches, they can use it aggressively as well. One of the advantages that you have, well, Dark is certainly not going to go aggressive, and we see the same thing happening right now for Solar, actually. One of the things that you do have, obviously, if you go 3 hatches, is you get a lot of larvae. So you can use those larvae for Zerglings as well, oftentimes in the early game, especially. If you want to go for a Zergling all-in, larva is kind of your limiting factor, but with both players already going for a Roach Warren right here, and we even see a Creep Tumor for Dark. This is both players really looking at each other and really accepting the fact that I think we're going to go for a bit more of a macro-focused game, right? This is sort of like a gentleman's agreement where neither of them is really making a lot of units. While they can definitely make some, and we do see a round of Zerglings right here for Solar. He's already following it up once again with more drones over at the 3rd base as well. Okay, I love this. So in the mid game of Zerg versus Zerg, right, it looks like we're bypassing early game altogether, which once again, I would not recommend playing on the ladder. But in the mid game of ZVZ, the most common units are obviously Roaches, Ravagers, and Mutalisk. All of them are very viable, especially Roaches and Ravagers. That's one of the things that we see a lot of the top level players focus on, especially. Roaches and Ravagers, as one of the Roaches here actually gets grabbed here. Nice little work there by Solar. But Roaches and Ravagers obviously are very strong. There's this weird moment in ZVZ where sometimes Roaches can actually counter Mutalisk. This is one of the phenomenons that I talk about quite a bit over at the live stream, But even though Roaches obviously can't shoot up, you can oftentimes hit a timing attack that is very, very difficult to defend if you're going for Roaches, or for Mutas rather, because the Roaches can kill everything before you finally clean it up. Now Solar being an absolute nuisance here, getting a full scout of all of the bases here of Dark. He might even be able to get himself a queen. Getting a queen at this point in the game is nice, especially when, of course, that lair is being produced. So that means that there's going to be a little bit less larva income. And he even gets a couple drones here on his way out as well. Definitely liking this early game play here from Solar, but obviously he was forced to make quite a lot of those Zerglings as well, and he had to get something done with them, because as soon as these upgrades finish, right, as soon as the Evolution Chamber upgrades finish, Roaches are absolutely king. Usually without upgrades, so you have an unupgraded Zergling going up against an unupgraded Roach, it takes the Roach 3 hits to kill the Zergling. Okay, so that's 3 of those little acid spouts that it does, right? However, when you get yourself +1 missile, it only takes 2 of those hits to grab yourself the kill on the Zergling. So usually as soon as +1 missile is done, that's the reason why +1 missile is super, super important in ZVZ. It doesn't just help in Roach versus Roach battles, but it helps tremendously as well in those Roach versus Zergling battles. So usually as soon as that +1 missile is done, Lings are only really used for counterattacks and the like. So you don't really want to have too many of them left over right here in the mid game. Well, I mean, this is easily the most macro-focused game that I've seen in ZVZ lately. Look at this. Neither player really committing to anything, right? We see already the Hydra Den right now coming up for Solar. So obviously Roach Ravager is good. Roach Ravager Hydra is even better. It's just that you need to get yourself a really solid army out as well before the Hydras can really be utilized properly. But Solar is already going up towards a 4th hatchery. So in these first 6.5 minutes or so of the game, right, we really haven't seen too much action just yet. And if there's one matchup in ZVZ, or where that usually doesn't happen, it's ZVZ, right? Usually this is the matchup that ends really quickly. Both players even going up to double Evo Chamber upgrades as well, so spending a lot of resources to go for that long game. All right, finally we see a little bit of deviation. Solar is grabbing the Nidus network. Now, while Blizzard did announce that they're gonna nerf the Nidus network a little bit, the Emerging Worm is gonna have 3 armor rather than 5, which allows Zerglings and whatnot to clean it up a little bit easier. That patch is not live just yet. Roaches and Ravagers are extremely good, but obviously if you can send them towards your opponent's side of the map in a Nidus Worm, you can absolutely overwhelm your opponent. However, if there's like one player, right? So there we go, Nidus Worm going up inside of the main base. If there's like one player who's really, really good and really solid at playing the macro game, I feel like it's Dark. Dark definitely on top of this first Nidus Worm right now going up inside of the main base, but as we may expect here, more and more of them are going down. Second one apparently even grabbing the Overlord kill right there as well with those corrosive balls, but there's no denying that Dark is an extremely good defensive player. And I kind of like the fact that Solar is going for this. I mean, this is very typical Solar playstyle. He loves going for these kind of builds. But now, of course, that defender's advantage that you usually have in ZVZ is going to be neglected at least somewhat. The Nidus Worm, though, once again gets picked up, and 8 minutes into the game, we already find ourselves at the 3rd worm going down. Now, Nidus Worms, they're 50 minerals and 50 gas. They're really not that expensive, but it does add up over time. And what it now also forces, at the very least, for Dark, is to leave some of those units at home, right? He can't just move his entire army across. And of course, since both of these guys are really good, while they're also dealing with the Nidus Worm in the main, they're fighting with the rest of the army. Okay, so I think what Solar's strategy right now is to try and just overwhelm Dark with multitasking. Nidus Worms and Overlord drops. These are the 2 tools that you really have together with like Burrow and Burrowed Roaches, obviously, to completely overwhelm your opponent and hit at like 7 different angles at once. Here we go, though, big push, and since some of those Roaches of Dark are forced to stay at home, I do think that Solar should be able to grab a nice little advantage. Upgrades, though, nicely here in favor as well for Solar, so I don't think that Dark is going to be able to overstay his welcome here. He needs to make sure he gets them out of there. And immediately, when the retreat is happening, another Nidus is going up inside of the natural. Now, Queens are not going to be quite enough yet, but I think that Dark, once more, is going to be able to clean that up before the worm really gets up as well. Another Nidus Worm, though, being utilized immediately. Corrosive Balls definitely are going to be able to get rid of that. And this time around, they once again get one of those flying overseers with them as well. Dark, super solid here when it comes to the Nidus Worm defense, but he needs to be careful. He needs to be very careful taking these fights here in the center of the map, as so many units are always left at home. This is sort of like a skill check, right? Another Nidus Worm is coming up. This is sort of like a skill check. where Solar's like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna try and be an absolute nuisance to you. You just simply defend, and if you make one little slip up, it will be game over, because Roaches are gonna be everywhere, and you're gonna have to try and defend that way. This Nidus Worm, though, does go up, but there's more than enough here for Dark to defend against this one as well. I love this. The thing is, at some point, right, things are gonna go south for either player. You gotta keep in mind, Solar is investing a lot of money into doing this. He's investing a lot of resources to try and deal some damage, and the damage really hasn't been dealt just yet. Nice juicy corrosive balls there, though, for our Zerg player in red. But in the end, since both of these people, or both of these players, are extremely good, we haven't really seen one of them come out ahead. And I'll be honest with you, I have lost against this playstyle that Solar is playing here quite a bit myself. It is super easy to just accidentally let one worm go up and just get overwhelmed here. So this Nidus Worm here definitely is not gonna go up. And well, apparently he's just throwing Nidus Worms at a wall right now, okay? This one, though, might be unscouted. Yeah, this one is definitely not in vision right here. But what is this one really gonna achieve, right? I guess it's gonna, like, give the game-wide scream sound. But even then, yeah, Dark is guesstimating where it would be located, as he has a lot of overlords right here in the top right-hand corner. He has bases scouting, or overlord scouting rather, all over the map. So he at the very least knows roughly what's going on, and he's smelling blood. He knows that this network right here is gonna have to be picked off as well. At the same time, though, Dark is utilizing a bit of a different tool, and I feel like this one is already more effective than all of the aggression that Solar has been going for. He's going for those burrowed roaches. Burrowed roaches, very, very strong. They're forcing out spine crawlers right now in the mineral line, so you can see right here, in just a couple seconds with a couple roaches, 7 of those drones were picked off already. And while likely the rest of those roaches will also be killed, that certainly was successful here for Dark, as he's currently ahead when it comes to that work account. The game of drones is very, very important. Solar, though, trying to set up a massive concave. And Dark decides to back up here as well. I feel like this is the moment where Nidus Worms are useful, right? I kind of feel like when your opponent is... Yeah, exactly. When your opponent is trying to be aggressive, this is kind of the moment where I feel like the Nidus Worm is going to be much more useful. And this one is outside of the vision range there of Dark, who's once again sending some of those tunneled roaches towards the other side of the map as well. Nidus Worm goes up. It is certainly going to go after the base. There you go. Dark will definitely not be able to grab this 5th hatchery just yet. Not a cancel, so that's a full 300 mineral kill plus the drone as well. Couple roaches, though, inside of the 3rd base right now as well. They're cleaning up the queen that was damaged earlier already. And at the same time, we see big amounts of aggression here happening everywhere. Nice set of corrosive balls there for Dark, who's still being aggressive on the other side of the map, picking up a couple of those reinforcing roaches, and also, more importantly, killing a couple of those drones. Solar, though, now also has got himself that roach upgrade, so he's going to be able to burrow quite easily here, too. That's going to be pretty annoying. And Nidus Worm is going to go up, and now we see a Muta switch here for Dark. I like this as well, okay? The Mutas can certainly force at least some of this aggression to settle down. Roaches inside of the main base will likely be cleaned up as well. I don't see an Overseer anywhere nearby. You know, Dark is definitely going to have to make a new one for that. But this is annoying, right? That Muta switch coming up so very unexpected. And that means that, at the very least for now, Solar is going to have to lay off the pressure. Actually, they're target firing all of those Ravagers, right? So I like that move here for Dark, grabbing the most expensive units and now finally going after those drone kills. So even though, oh, I love that burrow. Obviously, you can utilize that defensively as well, right? But even though it was Solar who was really piling on the aggression so far, I really feel like it's Dark who's the one who's gotten more damage done, right? There we go, 16 drone kills in favor of Dark. He's done an excellent job defending a lot of those Nidus Worms. And while Hydras are streaming out right now, it at the very least is creating a little bit of breathing room right here for our Zerg player in blue. So that's 10 Nidus Worms, guys. 10 Nidus Worms, and one of them is still undetected. 4 base versus 5 base right now, although the 5th is not mining here for Solar. He does still have a very scary ground army, though, and there's now also Lurkers joining the fray. Lurkers are absolutely phenomenal, especially in Roach versus Roach battles, because they deal so much damage to Armored especially, and they really just clean up everything on the ground really quickly as well. And once again, beautiful concave there by Solar, but I mean, he's still dealing with those Mutas, right? And I love the way that Dark is positioning these Mutas like right over in this area. It really allowed them to pick up a lot of those reinforcing Zerg units, right? Once again, they're getting so much value done. That was a pretty small commitment here in the end for Dark. Still keeping a couple of those Mutas alive, but it completely changed the tide of battle here. Well, I don't see an Overseer for Dark, so that means that these Lurkers are going to be able to do an awful lot, and while the mutas are also joining the fray right now. And some really good corrosive balls connect with these roaches in red. It is indeed gonna be Dark who is forced to back up. Alrighty, man, okay, the skill level required here is ridiculous. Dark, okay, so rather than going up to lurkers himself, or maybe even trying to get, like, vipers out, he has decided that he wants to go for ravagers. Corrosive balls can connect with lurkers and deal a lot of damage. The issue is, though, that getting them to connect is really difficult, especially once the burrow speed upgrade is done. So I kind of feel like Dark's build right here is on a bit of a timer. There's no hive just yet here for either player. Dark even now going up towards the Spire upgrade, so he's looking to maybe even go up to maybe Brute Lords here later on. We'll see if that's going to come into play, but here we go once again. Solar being a nuisance here. The Nidus Worms haven't really worked out in his favor just yet, but now these Tunneling Clawed Roaches are actually getting through, and they are able to kill at least a couple of those drones, and they are forcing Dark to back up as well. He's now trying to get himself that Lurker Den too, but it didn't quite happen, and while apparently a Nidus Worm will also once again go up here in the bottom right-hand corner, I don't think that one is gonna go up just yet either. Okay. I really want to just emphasize how both of these players are microing so well at multiple different fronts. I mean, I didn't know I signed up for an Archon match, okay? This kind of feels like both of them are playing an Archon match with like 4 different engagements everywhere at any given moment. And once again, this is like the weak spot here for Dark, right? I kind of feel like a Nidus Worm over here works out in his favor pretty much every single time. Although this time around, it will not go up. A couple changelings apparently being killed here as well. They were spotted, finally. But, well, more of them are immediately moving across as well. Solar has found another blind spot right here in the vision of Dark. That Nidus network certainly is not gonna be caught just yet. And now that he has got these lurkers for defense, right? More and more Roaches and Hydras can be committed to the counterattack. Nidus Worm inside of the main base as well. That one certainly will be occupying these mutas, and that gives these Roaches a little bit of leverage to maybe even move up towards the 3rd base as well. At the same time, though, while Dark is at the very least passing by some of these lurkers here, he is also sending a lot of Roaches towards the 5th base of Solar, and I think that this one is certainly not going to end up mining here either. While that's going on there, Solar is all over the map, trying to pick up at least a couple of those worker kills. Once again, tunneling towards the natural. Maybe sending a couple of those Roaches towards the main here in a little bit as well. He is dealing once again a whole lot of damage, and both players are taking so much damage. Both of them are literally just trying to overwhelm the opponent with damage. A couple of those lurkers though, unburrowed, they are extremely expensive units. You do not want to lose your lurkers just for free. But both players right now are just about to finish up towards the hive. We even see the Hydra Den right now being picked up, and that's actually rather painful. Ooh, the Muscular Augments upgrade does get denied, and that means no Hydra speed here for Dark just yet, who's going to be forced to make another one of those. Finally, now also grabbing himself another one of those Lurker Dens that were picked up earlier. And I kind of like Solar's position, though. But if you look at the bank right now, right? That one is heavily in favor of Dark. Dark has been the one who's been forced to defend for a really long while already, and he's done an excellent job at exactly that. What I don't really like, though, about Dark's position is his unit composition, right? We see already that Lurker Speed Burrow upgrade coming up here. That's very critical, especially against Ravagers. And it sort of like neglects the usage right here of Ravagers for at least a little while. I mean, you can still use them for zoning. Regardless, though, once again, Roaches are pretty much everywhere. We see Dark counterattacking right now towards the 3rd base. Finally has enough Roaches here to maybe even go after that Spine Crawler. At the same time, though, Solar was inside of the main race right here. Dark, of course, cannot spot those units without an Overseer. And while that's going on, we also see a big battle happening right here in the center of the map. Look at the multitasking here, guys. Seriously. How many battles are happening here at once? How many fights are they microing here at once? And how well are they multitasking? It's ridiculous. Dark, though, ends up losing 8 of those drones, and now he's only down to 35 workers. Yes, he does have a bank. Solar doesn't have that. But I still favor this unit composition right here for Solar. Okay, this is where things could change, though. We see 12 lurkers coming up. Solar, though, looking to get that very nice positional play. There's a couple Vipers right now joining the fray as well. But position is everything in lurker battles, right? Ooh, actually, all of a sudden, look at that. The missile attack level 3 upgrade has been denied. We see all of those units sitting in a natural. This is a really juicy location for corrosive balls as well. We see blinding clouds going up on all of those lurkers, and that means that Dark is getting the upper hand right here. here, but he is certainly losing so much here in the process as well. It is hard to say who really got out ahead there, but I don't see a Roach Warren anymore here for Dark, so I guess he's gonna have to reinforce this with just Hydralisk. There's still a couple of those lurkers left over. Obviously, Blinding Cloud is very useful in these kind of battles. Oh man, he was even using the lurker right there, or a defensive abductor on the lurker to try and keep that one alive. But there's still a couple units left over right now for Solar, who's starting to pile across the map with more and more reinforcements. These Roaches and Hydras just hatched. They are ready for battle once again. Now, I like this positioning right here for Dark. He also kept all of those Vipers alive, which is really, really important. Blinding Cloud and Abduct is phenomenal, and a couple Roaches are actually rallying towards their deaths. Hydras now, though, being picked up. Hydras, of course, very strong in straight-up battles, but not when they have no shield in front of them. That's usually the purpose that the Roaches and whatnot serve. But man, this is an action-packed game. And if you look right now at the supply, right? Both players actually very, very even. Dark did actually empty his bank as well. So I do think that Solar is the one who got that favorable trade there. But units lost-wise. This is a very, very even game. And now all of a sudden, it's going to be Dark, who still has lurkers, who still has those Vipers left over as well. And I don't really mind this position here. What a sick situation. Oh, actually, that Sport Crawler getting a kill on one of those Vipers. That is very important to not have happen. Vipers are super, super nice. At the same time, though, once again, of course, Roaches are happening all over the place. We see one of those lurkers still somehow, some way alive. Nice little abduct there for Solar, though. He is the one who ends up getting one of those lurkers here for free. Fort base starting to run very, very low, and I do think that indeed Dark is going to commit right now to picking that one off. Okay, man, what a ridiculous level of skill here from both of these players. I really want to just emphasize as well that while they're microing all of these fights, it is just one little mistake away from losing, right? It is super easy to lose in these kind of scenarios because they're piling on so much pressure. They're banking on their opponent making a mistake. Right now, actually, we see the Zerglings of Dark right here. I guess he ended up canceling Metabolic Boost earlier, but we see a couple of slow Zerglings joining the fray as well. But this is such a difficult situation to be in. Now, by the way, for endgame compositions in ZVZ, usually Hydra, Lurker, Viper is the way to go. It sort of counters everything. Abducts, though, are super useful. There we go. That's the weirdest thing. Vipers abducting Vipers, they change spots. Top 10 things science can't explain, okay? That doesn't make any sense. They should meet in the center and like bump into each other. Apparently, though, it doesn't matter. Momentum is certainly another thing here. Apparently, it's a little bit strange. If you abduct a Viper with your Viper and you abduct their Viper at the same time, they switch spots. It's one of those things I would like to think that Blizzard never really tested. They're like, well, when would that ever happen? Well, apparently it does happen right now at high-level StarCraft. Here we go, though. Dark actually getting a really nice position here, but I don't see any Overseers. I don't see any Overseers, and there's still Vipers. Or there's still Lurkers, rather. At the same time, Solar, even though he knows he's under a lot of pressure at home, he is the one who's once again counterattacking. I mean, he's counterattacking towards a base with no minerals. Not entirely sure what the advantage is right over there. I guess he can pick up a couple of those units as well. But this is a painful loss, though, for Dark. Being caught in this corner in the natural. I feel like that's one of the first big mistakes we've seen Dark make here. Other than, like, using or losing the position right here in his natural that we saw earlier. Man, what a sick game. So both players are actually just about to mine out 4 or 5 bases, right? Solar does have a 5th, though, and that's important. Dark doesn't have a lot of income anymore. If you look right now at the bottom of the screen, yes, there is some income still here at the 4th, but that one is gonna run low. He's finally grabbing himself a 5th as well, but he needs to be careful. Still, though, a very scary army. Nice abduct there, actually, by Dark. Getting himself a couple of those really juicy Ravagers and also one of those Lurkers. Really nicely done, but that's still a lot of leftover units. Dark now actually grabbing the Lurker that was defending the 5th as well. That Blinding Cloud, though, forcing so many of these units out of position, but you gotta keep in mind, Blinding Cloud also works defensively. Ooh, Lurker will be picked off. Corrosive Ball right there being utilized on the drones, and eventually it is indeed Dark who taps out. Solar obtains the victory with just 69 supply left over. Nice. Man, what a ridiculous game. This is one of those games where I look at it, and I've been playing StarCraft for like 8-9 years, okay, and I feel like I'm pretty good, but there's no way I could ever get this good, right? Like, this is one of those games where you just look at it and you realize, wait a second, these guys are not just microing one fight. They're not just microing 2 fights. They're not just microing 3 fights. But I think in the end right there, with all of the Roach run-bys and whatnot combined, we had like, what, 6 fights happening at once? I swear, guys, they start with the same amount of resources as we all do. They start with the same amount of workers as we all do. They can only look at one place at once, okay? They're not Alpha Star. They can't look at the whole map and just sort of like micro everything. They have to actually commit their attention to one location at once, and it's so difficult to properly do that. And to allocate, I guess, like, your brain to the different fights properly. That's so difficult to do. Ridiculous. I love this. I hope you enjoyed watching it as well. If you did, I mean, if you watched it all the way until the end and you weren't impressed, first off, what are you doing with StarCraft, man? This was insane. Make sure you hit that like button, okay, if you enjoyed it. And of course, if you want to see more, make sure you hit that subscribe button as well, so you get notifications as soon as I upload more. Other than that, I want to thank you very much so for watching this video until the very end. Do not forget to smile, alright? And I will see you once again tomorrow for another video.